Hello friends. Hi, how are you? Looks like we are live right now. Let me just check what are the stream quality and audio bitrate and everything else. Because the thing is, I just pretty recently created an entire new setup for my PC, and this is like to make it more powerful, and I want to make sure that all the things are correctly configured. So let me just quickly check how does the stream health looks like, and then we can start talking about 25 different IT careers. So this is going to be the continuation of what we last did in our live stream. For that we actually took it to like halfway, but today I actually want to go through all 25 careers, and I want to make sure that I talk about it in as much detail as possible, because there is actually a secondary reason for that as well. I am actually creating or working to create a new course for freecodecamp.org, and my aim is to use this live stream, like all the content that I'm going to present over here, to put that and provide that to freecodecamp.org. For those who don't know, it is like one of the most popular channel for like coding as well. So for all the coding tutorials and stuff like that. I'm just checking for the stream health, and let me know in the comments if you are able to hear me properly, if you are able to see me properly. And what we are planning to do for this section is that I want to make sure that first we go through any particular job, and I will be talking about everything related to that. And once that's done, I will go through all the messages. So if you have any questions, you can just post it in the chat, and then I would respond to the chat as well. So we will do this simultaneously, side by side. And now I've been talking on, and looks like the stream connection is pretty excellent. So now let me just go ahead and start presenting the PowerPoint. Okay. Sure. So looks like we are good. Okay. Okay, cool. Seems, let me just turn on the full screen mode. Yes, so this is what we are going to talk about today. 25 IT career options in 2024, and we are going to talk about every single thing related to most popular IT careers, so that you can aim for. So first, let's understand that what is in it for you in this whole course. Number one thing is we are going to talk about 25 different IT careers. For each of the career, this is going to be the format. First, we are going to talk about the roles and responsibilities for every single one of those careers. Then we will talk about that what are the minimum skills you should know in order to be eligible, or at least have some sort of idea that if you are given that role, you can at least be able to perform. So we'll talk about the bare minimum skills that you at least need. Next, we will talk about that if you don't have these skills, what is going to be the estimate time you can prepare in your mind, so that if you are planning to go into an IT career, you can decide upon yourself that how much time and effort you are going to put in order to secure that job. We are also going to talk about that what are the day-to-day challenges with those particular roles, because we want to make sure that we are not missing out and we don't select a career which does not suit your own personal skills. So we want to make sure that we are also aware about the roles, responsibilities and challenges. Next, this would be very critical for a lot of people, because compensation is a big part of why we do the work. We want to make sure that we are well providing for our families. So we'll talk about that what should be the expected starting salary as well. And then if you don't have the knowledge, the thing we talked about, that the minimum skills you should know, if you don't have that, I will talk about that what should be the learning sequence you should follow things, or you should start learning for that role, so that you are following a correct cadence, and also you are building up your skills on top of the existing skills you have gained from the past. So this would be like a gradual step-by-step process, and we will talk about each one of them. And in the end, for every single role, we are also going to talk about what should be the ideal preparation strategy. If I were to prepare, this would be the strategy that I would follow. And this is going to be quite a lot of different slides because it took me a lot of time to make this, but I hope you find this useful. Okay, so now let's get started with introduction about myself. So the number one thing is my name is Parth Vyas, as you all must know. I've been in the IT industry for close to 10 years now, and I've worked in many different companies like Royal Bank of Canada, Microsoft, Nokia. Currently, I'm working with the biggest cinema company in Canada called Cineplex, and I have started my career as a junior developer, and then I moved to like a senior position, and then I moved to some other positions, and currently I'm working as a software architect. So I have been around the block. I know how companies work, what are the different projects, how does pressure is being handled, and I want to make sure that you understand that I have that credibility that I can talk about these issues. Some of my hobbies include watching lots of movies, playing lots of Call of Duty, and going on lots of different hikes. Few fun facts about myself. So I have masters in computer science. Pretty recently I became dad of two beautiful twin daughters, and originally I was born in Canada. Originally I was born and raised in India, but since last 10 years I have been living in Canada, and both countries are very near and dear to my heart. Okay, so first let's understand that what are the different categories of jobs we are going to talk about. Number one category is going to be the core software engineering and development jobs. These are the jobs that are basically like your software developer or backend developer, mobile developer, software architect, solutions architect, these kinds of roles that we are going to talk about. Next, we are going to talk about cloud-based roles that because we are seeing a lot of surge in cloud-based roles across the IT industry, and with the rise of Azure, AWS, Google Cloud Platform, Oracle Cloud, Salesforce Cloud, and whatnot, there has been a huge demand for very skilled folks who can be really good in cloud computing and understand the cloud technology really well. Next, we are going to talk about the a highly growing sector right now, that is data and AI. Last year when ChatGPT came in, it significantly changed the entire industry, and now we are seeing a lot of different companies pop up, and hundreds and thousands of AI products are coming in. And in order to generate or build those AIs, we need huge amount of computation power. So we are going to take use of both of these items. Next category of job is going to be like your traditional conventional IT jobs. So these are going to be your IT and network administration job, system administrator, data administrator, and things like that. So these are going to be the conventional jobs that has been in IT industry for like 20 plus years, and they are still going but slowly fading away, but we are still going to talk about them. We are also going to talk about a field or sector that is very closely correlated with the core software engineering and development, and that is the QA portion of it. That quality assurance has become really popular in recent years, because for whatever work you do, you also wanted to have like smart engineers who are going to validate your work. So we are going to talk about QA engineering jobs, and then there are going to be UX and UI related jobs. These are going to be the jobs specifically dedicated for better user experience. And in the end, last jobs are going to be management related jobs. These are like senior level jobs where people management, product management, and different sort of analysis comes into the place, where you are basically managing the existing requirements or people or softwares or products or hundreds of other things. And this would be the last thing we are going to talk about. So these are the typical categories. These are very popular, and now let's take a look at that. What are the different roles we are going to talk about, so you have some idea. So for software engineering and development, first we are going to talk about the core software development role. So these include your stuff like backend engineer, front-end engineer, and full stack developer. Next, we are going to talk about mobile application developer, game developer, and also after that we are going to talk about software architect or solutions architect, cloud architect, software solutions architect, cloud solutions architect. You can interchange the name, but basically these are the roles we are going to talk about for the core software engineering and development side of the things. If we talk about data and AI, this is the buzzing word right now, and pretty important jobs. So data scientist, data analyst, and data engineer, these are going to be the data related jobs we are going to talk about. Next, it's going to be business intelligence developer, machine learning engineer, and AI engineer and AI architect. So these are all highly sought after jobs in the industry right now. A lot of people are looking for very skilled people in these technologies, and this can be a great pathway because they are essentially growing in demand day by day. So this would be the data and AI section. For QA, we are simply going to talk about QA engineer, quality assurance engineer, and we are going to talk about like manual testing and automated testing scenarios. So what are the different skills you need for each one of them? Okay. Now let's talk about the cloud based roles. So we are going to talk about cloud engineer, cloud infrastructure, and cloud admin. So all of these three roles are very dedicated towards different cloud technologies. And last, we are going to talk about DevOps engineers, because DevOps practices are becoming more and more popular day by day. So we are going to make sure that we don't miss out on these technologies. Okay. For IT and network administration, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to talk about the more conventional IT based roles. So this include things like system and network admin, database administrator, and things like that. Okay. And for the management role, second to last category, we are going to talk about Scrum Master, IT Engineer, and Business System Analyst, BSA. And lastly, for the user experience and design, we are going to talk about UX and UI designer, that how can you get into that role. So now let's start with our core roles. And the first role we are going to talk about is backend developer or software engineer. So first, let's talk about that. What are the roles and responsibilities of a typical software developer or backend developer that you have to encounter? These are the backbone of any particular IT company. You can't see any company without the people who has the experience in this sector. And for that, these are the typical roles and responsibilities you can imagine. So number one thing is, you are going to be mostly responsible for developing and maintaining software applications based on many requirements that come in for the specific job operations. So these requirements can come in from many different places. They can be coming in from product owners, they can be coming in from clients, from stakeholders, from management, from marketing team, from operations team, or maybe just like core technical issue that, or the best practices that you need to follow. So you need to make sure that you are really good at understanding how the software applications are working and how you can make them better. Next, a very big portion of your job is going to rely upon debugging and troubleshooting the existing software. And many times things are not perfect, so they break all the time. So you need to be there to understand that why it's breaking, how can you fix it, how can you fix it immediately. If something is breaking in production and affecting the real-time customers, how can you make sure that you can actually fix it on the immediate basis? So these are all the things that you need to make sure. Okay, just a second, let me just fix the existing. Okay, I want to check if I am able to just send out a message in the, okay, yeah, I can send the message inside the live chat. So I just wanted to check that because I was not sure how smoothly it is going on. Just a second. Yeah, so looks like everything is working as expected in terms of software. Just bear with me for a second. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm not missing anything out, and if anyone is trying to chat, I want to be able to see that. Okay, cool, I can see that. Okay, so coming back to our roles and responsibilities, you are going to be responsible for debugging and troubleshooting the software, identifying that what are the issues. If the issues persist, you need to fix them and fix it as quickly as possible. This is also a very collaborative role. Backend developer or software engineer is highly collaborative because you are at any given moment you are working with a lot of different other developers and designers to make sure that you are following the best practices. You are understanding what are their needs. If there are any inherent concerns, you need to speak your voice and identify that, hey, these are the problems at hand, we need to fix that. If you have these requirements, are these requirements valid or not? So you need to counter these things as quickly as possible. So these are the typical roles and responsibilities. Most important portion, you would be continuously writing clean and scalable code And on top of coding, you are also going to be teaching other people, you are learning from different folks, you are also going to be generating the pull request or PRs. You are going to be working with collaborative environment where you are constantly pushing the code amongst bunch of different people, and you need to make sure that you well document your code as well. This is always a really good practice to follow. And last thing is that any new technology can come in. Like 10 years ago, cloud was not as popular. Right now, every developer needs to have understanding of cloud. Tomorrow there can be something else that could come in, so you need to make sure that you understand that what are the different requirements, and you always need to keep up with the existing and ongoing technology. Now let's come to the most important portion. This is that skills you should have as a backend developer. These are the minimum skills that you should pursue or you should know before you become a backend developer. And let's go one by one. So software developer or backend developer role is heavily dependent on various tech stacks. There is no one size fits all answer. There can be some jobs or some companies who are specifically working on Java, or some companies are just only working on .NET and C#. Some companies are only working on Python, or some roles are dedicated for each of these different jobs. So if that is the case, you need to make sure that you have the skill sets according to that language requirements. So if you are looking for a Java developer related roles, you might need skills like Java development, and then Spring Boot, and then Java practices, and how can you deploy Java applications, and JDBC connections and things like that. Maybe for Python, you are looking at completely different set of tools. But the idea is, at minimum, you should have understanding of at least one popular programming language. This can be your Python, Java, C#, .NET, C, C++, you name it. If you don't know any of this, and if you need my opinion, I would suggest that either go with like Python, because that is the most used language right now. If you can't go with Python, maybe like try to go with Java or .NET. They are also relatively popular. But these are like a really good options to follow for the tech stack. And let me know in the comments as well that if you want to have the specific different roadmaps for like Java developer and Python developer, I can create dedicated videos on that in my channel in the future. Next, with any programming language, you need to have very sound understanding of its subsequent framework. And this also again very easily rely with the choice of your language or the role you are applying for. So for Python, things like Django and Flask are really popular. For Java, it's Spring Boot and things like that. So you can learn those frameworks and put them to good use. Next, you must have very good understanding on how databases work, because without data or without database management, no application can function. So at any given moment, you need your application to speak with some sort of database to store the value or fetch the value. And this comes in because mainly there are like two types of databases: SQL databases and NoSQL databases, and they subsequently have many other aspects. But if you have like just a sound understanding of MySQL and Cosmos DB or MongoDB, or MySQL and PostgreSQL, these are your SQL databases, and Mongo and Cosmos DB are your NoSQL databases, that should be good enough. But at least you should know that how can you connect with these, how can your program speak with these databases, write queries, read queries, open the socket connections and things like that. You need to learn that. This is really important, the version control, because I just mentioned that those days are gone where you are just building the code and then pushing all the executable code files into the server. Most of the cases you would be working in a collaborative environment with many different people, because it is the best practice. So you need to have very good understanding of version control systems. So Git, GitHub, Azure repos, GitLab, Bitbucket, there are many different options. But if you know just one, that should be enough, because all the other ones, they follow the same procedure. Now you need to have really good understanding of different APIs, and there are like 6 or 7 popular ones, but most popular ones are SOAP APIs, REST API, and GraphQL. That is a graph-based query language, because these three are most commonly used for any different application. That if application wants to connect with any particular backend, they need to be doing it using API. If application wants to expose themselves, they are also going to be exposing themselves using different APIs and API gateway tools. So you need to have very good understanding that how API calls work, how can you establish them, how can you set them up. This is a contested issue, because this, at least you should have some basic front end knowledge. Even if you don't have it, I don't think it matters that much at a junior position, but it's very easy to learn these things. So you should have at least some sort of basic front end knowledge. And next, you need to have good knowledge of DevOps technologies. So this include things like Docker, basic CI/CD pipelines, Kubernetes containers. How can you build CI/CD pipelines, Jenkins and Maven and all of these things. So you need to have at least some sort of DevOps understanding, because you are more or less going to be working on the automated pipelines that are going to be running across multiple different platforms. Okay. And lastly, because you are building the code, you also need to do some sort of internal testing with that code as well. And that's where things like JUnit, PyTest, or depending on the choice of your language, different testing methodology comes into the place. Now let's see that how much preparation time is needed for backend developer. Typically, you can expect to learn these skills within like 3 to 12 months. And why there is such a wide range? Because depending on your maturity and understanding, many times most of the people, they have some sort of familiarity on programming or collaborative approach or API knowledge or GitHub and things like that. So because the more you know, the less you will have to learn. But needless to say, if you start if you put like dedicated efforts, you can be prepared for software developer position in like 3 to 12 months. Starting salary. Now this, I have put down like a US starting salary for basically, I took this data from levels.fyi and Glassdoor, so two really popular positions. And even at a junior position, depending on the company, some companies offer as large salary as $300,000 for good, really good software or backend engineers. And once again, the more experience you have, you can always target for higher compensation. But even the starting salary is pretty fabulous for someone just like fresh out of college and earning this kind of salary. So now let's talk about what are the challenges associated with this role. And this is again pretty common, that you need to make sure that you are keeping up with the continuously changing programming landscape. New log4j error comes in, you need to make sure that, hey, I need to fix that. There is a new vulnerability in place, you need to fix it immediately. If there are new technology comes into the picture, maybe like better scanning mechanism, better way of coding, GitHub Copilot is really good. So you need to understand that how does these things work, and how can you make sure that you are gaining the best output of that. So software developer position is always going to be a position that is going to continuously challenge you, unless you want to get stuck into the same company and just be comfortable with one language. So you always need to keep up with the changing landscape and changing programming languages. Next, you need to make sure that you have the correct knowledge and tools in order to manage complex projects, many different requirements, lot of different moving parts, and many times very tight deadlines. If product needs to be released on XYZ day, you need to make sure that it's ready, it's viable, and it's not going to impact the consumer. So many times there happens these escalations or these tight deadlines where you might need to put in some extra work. But in most of the cases, these things are, you learn to manage with your role. So you will basically learn to understand that how to be better at that. You need really good debugging skills, because in order to solve any issues that occur during the software lifespan, if something breaks, something doesn't work, you don't have documentation for that. Maybe it was developed like 10 years ago by someone else, and now you are in that job and you need to fix that. You will have to understand that what are all the tools you are going to use. How can you make sure that you are effectively dealing with these issues and helping your team members in order to complete with all of these issues. So these are like some of the challenges. And also you are continuously going to be working in collaborative environments, so you need to make sure that you have really good skills on working with different people, having those persona based hats, that if a marketing person is asking you to build something or do something, are you able to explain to that person that how it is viable, what are the technical challenges with that, and what are the things being needed to be done. Or maybe a new co-op student or new intern joins your company or your team, and then you need to work in collaborative manner with that person. So you are always going to be working with a lot of different people and a lot of different moving parts, so you need to have that soft skill idea as well. Okay, now let's talk about the future growth possibilities for the backend developer position. So demand for software developer is really going to grow on and on, because we see that everything is becoming more and more technical. 10 years ago, if you need to do something, you probably needed like 3 different applications or 3 different devices in order to complete that thing. Now everything can be done within like your phone or the websites. So the demand for technology is growing, and that's where the demand for good software developers is also going to grow. So this is a very very well like option. uh, of course, AI is increasing, machine learning is increasing, Internet of Things are increasing, all the finance, government, tech, blockchain. There are a lot of different technology and sectors that are coming in, who are continuously trying to make themselves better by using better and better technical products. If you see the S&P 500 companies and top 100 companies, majority of them are dominated by tech companies because they are really useful. They make people's life easy, and that's why their demand is always going to remain so high until the foreseeable future. So this is a really good career scope. Now once you are in the software developer position, there are a lot of different potentials to move up into the tech ladder, and also many times in like management ladder as well, because if you have good knowledge of core technology and also you are good with people management, you can have really good and well established career in the long run in like many different companies. So you can go to like senior developer, cyber security, software architect, solutions architect, principal architect. You can also go into like data and AI. You can also go into the project management and then people management, become VP of a company and earn like $10 million a year. So you have that option, and I've seen many people do that. So yeah, in my opinion, this is a really good career choice. I personally started my career as a junior developer, and mostly I was working in the backend. So this is a really good career to have. Okay. And now if you don't have the knowledge for the backend developer, what should be the learning sequence you should follow? So this is really important. If you don't know anything and if you want to become like a backend developer, what should be your approach? How can you make yourself better? And this is the learning sequence I'm recommending. So number one thing is you need to make sure that you have a good enough understanding of the core programming languages out there, and you can pick any language of your choice. We already talked about it. Next, you need to learn about the version control system. So we mentioned that Git, GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLabs, there are a lot of different tools, but you need to get yourself familiarized with either one. Now, if you want, this is optional to gain some understanding of some front-end technologies, but that's again up to you. If you want to do that, you can do it. If you don't want to do that, this is not very important, but you need to have very good knowledge of different frameworks, and this is directly correlated with your choice of programming language that you are going to go forward. Next, you can start playing around with different databases, and then you can go and start building APIs and small scale projects for your application. Once you have these understanding, then you can go into more advanced setting and more advanced items, things like authorization and authentication. How can you make sure that your APIs are secure? How can you containerize your code and then deploy into various containers and these things? So these are going to be like step-by-step progression on your understanding. Then you can also start thinking about running your application or your project in any different cloud environment. So this would give you a great experience on how things work in your local machine. How can you run the same application in the cloud? What are the things you need to understand? Okay. Next, really important, you need to make sure that you also have understanding about different testing tools. So once again, this is really closely correlated with the choice of your programming language. And let me know in the comments if you want to see me create separate videos for every single separate developer position. So like Java developer, Python developer, .NET developer, and things like that. Next, you can start learning about CI/CD processes, DevOps processes. So these are really helpful. And then you can move forward with more advanced topics on like understanding how the web servers work or how the caching works, and then how can you make a more resilient and more advanced system. So if you follow this flow, for sure you can learn all of these things in like few months, and definitely you can be eligible in order to become like a good software developer or a backend engineer. And in terms of some of the common preparation strategies I can recommend, number one thing is, for all the things that we saw in the last slide, you can actually go and find suitable courses for each one of them. YouTube is a really good place. Coursera, Udemy, and EDX, they are sometimes paid version, but they also have quality courses, so you can find them. But if you are tight on money, YouTube has all the resources. And if you want, like, go to the channel called freecodecamp.org. In my opinion, it is like one of the best channels that has done tremendous work for a lot of different people across the entire world. So they have courses for each of the things I mentioned. Next, you can also start building with like a small personal projects, and then build your experience with that. So you can start, if you want to learn any programming language, you can start with like a smaller thing about understanding that how to just like write hello world program, or write a very small program like TikTok, building tic-tac-toe, or building like inventory management system. And then you can start making bigger and bigger projects, and that would give you a lot of insights on how different components of that language work. Plus you can incorporate things like collaborative approach, Git, or Git, knowledge of Git. Plus you can talk about things like how does the API calls work, how does the database connection works. So this would be really good approach to learn things. You can also contribute to the open source projects, and open source project is what makes the IT world as good as it is right now, because a lot of the cool technologies that we see, they are actually built and maintained by good people of this world, including the software where I'm currently recording and streaming this project, that is called OBS. That is and that is an open source project. So things like that are really helpful, and if you have contributed to the open source project, it's gonna look really good for your resume. You can also participate in these really popular coding boot camps in order to grasp all of these things really fast and really quickly. But the thing is, not many people have the option to spend dedicated time to join coding boot camps, and many times they can also become expensive as well. But if you want to jumpstart your career, coding boot camps are really good in order to increase or gain these skills. Plus there are a lot of different online communities that you can join in order to build your network around different software developers and understanding from their experience. So you can go to places like Stack Overflow, meetups, GitHub, or in your particular city, definitely there are going to be some developer meetups, so you can join them. And make sure that you are having really good LinkedIn profile, because LinkedIn has become really essential part of building the network and also be eligible to get a job. So essentially make sure that you are connecting with a lot of different people over LinkedIn. So these are my common preparation strategies for the backend engineer post. And now we are going to talk about front-end engineer, but let me quickly refresh myself and just drink some water. I've been speaking for close to, I don't know what, few minutes. I am not sure how much time has passed. Okay, cool. Let me see if someone has some questions. So is there a roadmap to SDE or full stack? Yes, we are going to talk about full stack and web developer. We are also going to talk about database administrator and data and AI jobs as well, for Casper, who asked this question. Okay, now let's talk about front-end developer. How to become front-end developer in 2024. So first, let's talk about different roles and responsibilities. So as a front-end developer, you can expect that you are going to be mostly working on the front-end side of any of your website. So you are going to be working on design and implementing the user interface for any of your web application. You are going to be responsible to make sure that the UX and UI designs of your application or your website looks good, feels good, operates in faster manner, doesn't take like 10 minutes to load a page or things like that. You also need to make sure that you are optimizing your websites or your web pages for the maximum speed and scalability. Plus, as a front-end developer, you are always going to be working continuously with the back-end developer or software engineers to make sure that how your web pages are set up, how they are working in the background, how they are connecting with each other, and how can you make the best use out of it. Next thing is, in order to make sure that your website is a high performance website and really good with the responsiveness, you need to continuously improve your existing website with better looking tools and smarter technologies and newer frameworks. So this is a really cool role because you can directly see the impact you are doing with your company or your product, and also this is in like good demand as well. So now let's see that what are the minimum skills you should have in order to become a front-end developer. And here is the list. Now the thing is, you must have some sort of knowledge of some sort of programming language, and HTML is like really low level, very like preliminary language, but that is like the birth point or starting point where you are going to start your career from. But then mostly you are going to be focusing on things like CSS, JavaScript, TypeScript. They are really popular, and with each of the language there comes the popular React JS or Angular or Vue or jQuery type of frameworks. So these frameworks are going to be really important to learn, because all the websites that we see currently, they are mostly built up on some sort of framework, and that's how the things revolve around different companies. So you must have this knowledge. Plus you need to make sure that the knowledge of state management. So this depends closely with the choice of your framework that you are going to learn. Like for React, you are going to be focusing on Redux, and for Angular, you are going to be focusing on NGRX and things like that. Okay. Then you need to have understanding of CSS preprocessors. So here comes the things like SAS and less. And you also need to have good enough understanding of the different build tools elsewhere. So things like Webpack, Gulp, NPM scripts, they are really popular to learn. Once all of these things are done, you must have some sort of idea on how responsive design works. So this include things like how the media queries are going to run around, how your application is bootstrapping, how you are connecting with each other. When the person scroll down, how does your website looks, how it behaves when someone hovers the mic over it, and things like that. You need to make sure that you provide the best look and feel for your applications to different people. Plus you need to have good enough understanding of APIs as well, because your web pages are for sure going to be connecting with the backend, and they are going to be doing it through APIs. All the data is also going to be coming in through different APIs. So you need to have that understanding. You also need to have testing mechanism for the front end framework, and this is completely different from backend developer. So things like Jest, Mocha and Jasmine, these are some of the testing tools that are really popular. Now version control is always going to be there whenever you see any sort of developer role, because you are always going to be working in collaborative environment. So you need to make sure that you are following the best principles for that. And you also need to have specific dedicated development tools for the front end jobs as well. So things like Chrome Dev Tools, Visual Studio Code, ESLint, Prettier, these are really popular, and you can start picking up like, so most of them are really popular, and even if you know like one or two, that is also going to be always going to be enough. Not completely enough, you can always learn more, but you at least need to have understanding of at least either one of them. And plus you need to have understanding about different package managers, things like npm and yarn, they are really popular. And then module bundlers, things like webpack, parcel, rollups, you need to have these understanding. So these are the minimum skills you should have for a front-end developer. Now let's see that what are the different things associated with front-end developer. So things like what is the average preparation time you can think of. Now in contrast with the backend developer, for the front-end developer you can get prepared in like a relatively shorter period, because it's like, I wouldn't say it's the easy job, but in my opinion, I've seen like it's slightly easier to learn, but always as you grow more advanced in your career, things becomes more and more complicated. Next, you can, in terms of starting salary, you can think of starting salary anywhere between 50,000 to $120,000. I've seen some companies go above that, around like like over 150, but these are like very few and rare instances. And also I took this data from Glassdoor and levels.fyi, and this data has been taken from and on top of it, okay, what I was saying, I think I forgot. Okay, anyways, so and also the currency for the starting salary is American dollars, US dollars. So depending on your country and your economical market, the price and salaries can fluctuate, and you can find out about those data through online. Now, if we are talking about challenges associated with the front-end developer roles, so these are going to be the common challenges that we see with most of the roles. That is that you constantly needs to keep up with the continuously evolving technologies. So you need to make sure if new framework or new technology, new language, things comes into the place, you might need to learn that, you might need to implement that. We are seeing that now all the companies, they're making better and better websites, and they are rebranding their image, and they are changing things quite rapidly, and this can have massive impacts on the people who are responsible for basically developing and maintaining these websites. So you are always going to be learning new things. Plus, there are always new versions of existing browsers coming into the place. Things like Google Chrome is updating itself, Mozilla Firefox is always doing something new. Previously we used to had Internet Explorer, the favorite meme of entire internet, that is no longer there, but right now we have I think it's called Edge, that is there. So they are always trying to improve themselves, making it more secure, more compatible. So you need to make sure that you also needs to make those adjustments in your existing websites. Plus, you need always, depending on the era we live in, depending on the market trend, there are always going to be these aesthetic appeals that companies wants to present on their website. So you are constantly improving that experience and always making these functional changes associated with the appeal of the field, and you need to make sure the efficiency of the code is there. Plus, you are always going to be working in collaborative manner with backend developer, different stakeholders, designers, UX UI engineers, testers, and product owners, and business people, and government regulatory authorities, like not directly in terms of regularities, but still you are going to be working on a lot of different things. So you need to make sure that you are like, you at least have those soft skills. Okay, now let's talk about some of the future scope of the front-end developer position. So day by day, web demand is continuously improving. All the companies are building more and more of their websites, their what do we call, like their mobile applications, their websites. Their website needs to be supported in like 3 different browsers, and also different mobile applications and mobile internet, Safari and Chrome and things like that. So there is always going to be need for different front-end developers. This is a growing market. There are many different opportunities you can specialize in after becoming like a web front-end developer. You can go into things like Android applications or iOS applications, UX UI designs, and they have huge upside potential in terms of career growth. So definitely there is good career growth, and also eventually, the more experience you gain, there is more probability that you are going to be eligible for leadership positions and also more seniority roles. So in my personal opinion, front-end developer is a good career choice. Now, I have never been good with design, so I never became a front-end developer, but I know a lot of brilliant and smart people who are front-end developer and who are doing really good in their careers. Okay, so if you don't have the knowledge of what we just talked about, here is the learning sequence you should follow if you want to become a good front-end engineer. So basically, first thing you want to start with is the basic web technology. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript, TypeScript, you need to make sure that you gain understanding of that, and then you get yourself familiarized with the version control system. So this is your Git, GitHub, Bitbucket or GitLab, things like that. Next, you need to understand that you have the basic logical framework understanding of how does the responsive design works. So things like your media queries, your bootstrapping your application, how can you make it look better, aesthetic and more pleasing to the eye and also to the experience of the user. So you need to have that understanding. Then depending on the language you are currently working with, you should have the understanding of that different libraries and frameworks. So things like React, Vue, Angular, they are really popular and you should have that understanding. After that, you can start learning about things like Sass and Less as a common CSS preprocessors. And also when we talk about framework, we are also talking about the state management for different frameworks, and for each one of them we have different options. So for React we have Redux, we have Vux, and we have NGRX for Angular. So you need to start understanding these things. You can also go with the different build tools and package managers. You can also go with the different build tools and package managers. Then start with like some testing mechanisms and things like that, some advanced JavaScript concepts, different API understanding. How can you bundle your existing modules? What are the different development tools? You need to start working on them. After you have this good enough understanding, you can go to the position of learning about different code quality tools. So how can you make your existing code better and more efficient, and also different code collaboration and version control method that we talked about. Okay, so now next thing is that what should be the ideal preparation strategy for a front-end developer position. Once again, everything is available online, so you can start learning from there. You can start building your own personal websites and personal web application. This is going to be the best way to start learning about the skills needed for the front-end developer position. You can also start participating in different coding boot camps that are specifically there just for the specialized training and front-end development. But once again, take my advice with a grain of salt, because coding boot camps are really good, but they are not for everyone. If you have those constraints, you need to make sure that you are not doing that. Okay, plus you can start thinking about publishing your own website and then start adding to your portfolio, add it to your resume. I personally know a very good friend who actually created his entire resume in a website, and I think he created it using React, and then if he's applying for any jobs, he would just send out the link, and it looked really good. And it was not just like a link where you click on and then you get the PDF of the resume. It was very good looking website with like a lot of different bootstrapping and cool looking things. So it was really good. And once again, LinkedIn is your best friend, so use it wisely, use it for good, and make sure to expand and build your network around that. Okay, cool. Now we are going to be talking about the full stack developer position, and this is going to be the combination of all the things that we just spoke about. This is going to be the combination of front end and back end developer, and this is like a senior, and in my opinion like a good enough senior role, because full stack developer is the go-to person for most of the issues. So if we talk about the different roles and responsibilities, this is just the combination of all the roles and responsibilities we talked about, in terms of designing and implementing the user facing resource, and also working on the backend system and backend application, and connecting the architecture and backend databases. Plus you need to make sure that the front end works really efficiently. You are also working on cross-functional teams to make sure that the different design and requirements are there. You are maintaining the correct integrity of the code and your organization. You are making sure that the security and data protection is there. So these are some of the skills you need in order to become like a good full stack developer. And now let's talk about the minimum list of skills you should have for a full stack developer. Once again, if you see this is going to look really same of what we just saw for the combination of front end and back end development, and it's just going to be the combination of just the same things. So you can talk about different like front end development languages, back end development languages, different databases, version control systems, APIs, and then security fundamentals, testing, and different development and hosting services. So this comes like your cloud services, and then different tools that are needed for backend and front end development. And also, because the full stack developer role is a very popular in nature role and also very senior role, so you are not only working with other developers, you, in most of the cases, you would be the go-to guy from many different stakeholders as well. So you must have very good soft skills and immediate understanding of the system. So if something goes wrong, you should know that where the issue is. You should be really quick to debug it and fix it and give your answer. So if you want, take the screenshot of this, so that these are the minimum skills you should have at least in order to become a good full stack developer. Now let's talk about the different aspect of the full stack developer role. Now, I personally wouldn't recommend this to anyone. If you like put die hard effort into learning everything, you can learn it in within a year, but it's never going to be enough, and it would be difficult to make it into a full stack developer without any experience. So most of the full stack developers, they were either like front end developers and learned the backend, or vice versa, but they at least had some sort of prior work experience, and that's how they became full stack developer. So you should do that. If we talk about starting salary, there are some staggering numbers. Literally $500,000, $500,000 per year you can make, and I've seen so many people achieving these amounts because this role in itself is so much tough job, because you have a lot of responsibilities of the entire system and you are working on so many different moving parts. So that's why in many cases I've seen like staggering numbers of salaries. Okay. In terms of challenges, so once again, you are going to be keeping up with all the different technologies, both in the backend and also in the front end side, both in terms of different technologies and coding languages. There is a very fine balancing act you need to do in order to make sure that you understand everything new that is coming in, and making sure that both backend and front end works flawlessly, and there are no issues, and if there are some issues, you know where to go ahead and start fixing these things. Okay. Next thing is that you are going to be working with integrating many different systems. So you need to make sure that there is a cadence amongst all of these things. There is consistency across the entire ecosystem of the application, and end to end, you need to make sure that all the flow is working as expected. Plus, because there are a lot of different higher amounts of responsibilities, you are going to be managing a lot of different things, and you need to make sure that this is a challenging role, because there is a lot of expected from you, but also there are huge rewards as well. Okay. And now if we talk about future scope of full stack developer, definitely there are great future scope for full stack developer, because we know that the demand for technology is always going to be there, and once you are full stack developer, you can very easily become a project manager, a program manager. You can easily become like a product owner, or even go to like management positions like a junior director or a director level positions, and these are like really lucrative career making positions. So full stack developers in itself is a great career choice to have, and if you can do it, it would be really awesome. So now let's see that if you don't know these things, what should be the learning sequence. Once again, I don't recommend anyone to just focus on becoming full stack developer. Rather, the aim should be to either become like a backend or front end developer, and once you are already in that job, you can start focusing on other aspect of the job, and that's how you can learn the skills of a full stack developer. So yeah, but if we talk about in terms of technology, it's a combination of both backend and front end technology. So you need to have basic front end knowledge, and then version control system, front end frameworks, then server side languages, then databases, so SQL and NoSQL databases, API developments, and also many different like security fundamentals, testing mechanisms, deployment services, many different development tools, and things like that, and also the soft skills that also you need to incorporate in order to become like a good full stack developer. Okay. Preparation strategy: start by mastering the basics of front end and then back end. You need to keep on practicing with many different personal projects, and you can also create your own GitHub repository where you are going to be working in collaborative nature. You can also work with many different people. You can also work on some open source projects where you are going to be contributing towards front end portion or back end portion. So things like React, Angular, or Vue.js in terms of front end side. In terms of back end side, you can be working on core programming issues and then fixing them with the choice of your language. So there are a lot of different tools available for that. Plus, you can start understanding that how can we connect different databases with different applications, and how can we make the fastest connections and do all sorts of different cool queries. So this could be the progression of learning, and the best way to learn is to build your own personal projects or start contributing to the open source projects. So this is going to be really helpful for your careers. And what you are going to learn in terms of real world scenario, that is going to be the most important portion. So where you can start thinking about combining best of both front end and back end development technologies. Okay, once again, all the technologies that we mentioned, all the skills, their courses are available on YouTube, Udemy, LinkedIn. So you can start understanding and start working on them. Now we are going to be talking about mobile developers. So mobile developers, once again, how to become mobile developer in 2021. How to become mobile developer in 2024. I am really getting sleepy. But anyways, if we talk about the common roles and responsibilities, you are either going to be mainly responsible for building either iOS applications or Android applications, and that's because there are no other applications to be made, but both are really popular. Everyone has a mobile phone device, and there are always going to be need and demand for mobile developers. So this is a really good and cool role. Plus, you need to make sure that you are working on cross-functional teams to continuously improve the existing mobile application, and also you need to make sure that you are bringing in new features to your existing mobile application. Plus, you need to write clean, readable, testable code. Make sure that everything is like eye-catchy and very fast and very responsive, because now you have a very small margin to incorporate and fit everything. So you need to make sure that you are really giving much thought on how your mobile application is going to look like. If there are some issues happen, you need to be there in order to fix those bugs and make sure that you are bringing up better user experience. And you need to integrate the mobile applications with the backend services and APIs. So you need to also have that understanding as well. Plus, every day mobile phones are some of the fastest changing technologies that we have seen in the past decade. So we have seen mobile phones going from flip phones to iPhones really quickly, and mobile developers have a huge responsibility to play in that regard. So you are always going to be working on something new, something better, to make sure that your services are doing the best they can. Now let's talk about that. What are the minimum skills you should have as a mobile developer? So here are the list. Now, if you are looking to become an Android developer, you can start thinking about Java or Kotlin. If you are talking about iOS development, then you can start thinking about Swift or Objective-C. But Swift is more popular, and that is mostly what iOS applications are built upon, but you can pick and choose. Now, with each of the option, you have a separate framework that you need to understand. So for Android, there is Android Studio, and for iOS, there is Xcode. So you need to have that understanding. Okay. Next, you need to have very good understanding of different UX and UI design principles, and different API integrations. So how can you consume the RESTful APIs? What are the different JSON and XML concepts, and how the data gets transferred between device to device and device to the backend server. So you need to have that understanding. Plus, mobile applications, they have their own different databases that are going to be light in nature, and you need to have understanding about SQLite or core data structure for iOS, such as like Realm or Firebase. And version control is always going to be there wherever we talk about any sort of development work. So once again, common understanding about Git, GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLabs, all of these cool things. Testing and debugging. So there are many different UI testing tools and also debugging tools. So you need to have those understanding, and depending on the Android application or iOS applications you are building, these things vary. Plus there are really core security fundamentals that you should understand, because now we are seeing day by day all the transactions that we are doing needs to be secure and encrypted. We are no longer just doing transactions as random. There are regular compliance issues associated with that. On top of it, there are really popular, like, financial transactions are happening or personal information is being shared. So you want to make sure that user privacy is maintained. And plus you need to have understanding of cross platform development tools like Flutter, React Native, or Xamarin, and things like that. So these are the minimum skills you should have in order to become a mobile developer. Now let's talk about cool aspects about mobile developer position. So in terms of preparation time, you can think about any time between 3 to 6 months would be a good period to learn or to become all of these technologies. Of course, you won't be an expert, but still this is good enough time where you can sort of brush over what things are, how things operate, and how can you you become better at these things. If we talk about starting salaries, these are going to be the common starting salaries, but with more experience, these can increase really fast. Plus there is this huge upside. If you create your own mobile application and it blows up, you can become like a millionaire as well. So we have all seen what happened to the folks from Angry Birds. They made like 13 different mobile applications before Angry Birds came in, and then they instantly became millionaires overnight. Okay. In terms of challenging, once again, with the mobile development, the common issue is every year new devices keeps on coming in. They have their new different OS. They have new dimensions, new size. So you need to make sure that your mobile applications are continuously compatible with many different sizes and types of devices. So this is really challenging. Plus you need to make sure that these are very high in terms of performance, and you are optimizing memory very efficiently. Because for mobile application, even though mobiles kept on getting better and better, so did the mobile applications. Because right now we are seeing that there are some applications that are like 3 or 4 GB in the size. Like if we see popular games like PUBG or Call of Duty, they are pretty high in terms of resource consumption. So you need to make sure that you can write efficient code to work with limited resources to complete everything in this small piece of magical device that we have. And continuously mobile technology is changing so frequently, so you are always going to be learning new things, updating yourself. Plus the important thing is you need to make sure that the entire data and encryption portion is there. So that is really important to understand and learn. Okay, now let's talk about the future scope for mobile developer. So with more and more devices coming in, and also with the birth of augmented reality and virtual reality goggles, mobile development is expected to grow. We have just seen that Facebook has released their own Oculus, and now Apple has released their own Vision Pro, and I think other companies are also going to be releasing new devices that are going to be utilizing the mobile applications in different manner. Plus now we have this AI boom where AI is also creating plugins, and there are a lot of different applications being created based on AI, for AI, by AI, for different people. So there is also huge growth in that. Plus mobile gaming is becoming really more and more popular. So mobile developer is a great career choice, and if you want, you can start learning about it, because for sure it is expected to grow and increase in the demand. Okay, now if you don't have the knowledge, let's see that what is the learning sequence you should follow in order to become a good mobile developer. And here you can start thinking about understanding that how does the basic programming work, what are the different data structure, what are the core concepts of different programming, and then you can either go for the Android suite or iOS suite or both. It's your choice, but we have different options for that. And once again, whichever you pick, you need to start understanding that how can you leverage those existing platforms, plus learn different UX and UI principles, then start working with different APIs, and then connect your existing mobile application with backend database and things like that. So this is really good to do. This is like a good sequence to follow, and then you can start working on collaborative environment, work with some more testing and debugging skills with incorporating more and more in different set of tools. See that what are the different performance optimization options you have, how can you make sure that your application performance improves, and what are some of the cross platform development tools, you can start working on them. So this would be a typical learning sequence I would recommend in order for any common mobile developer. And if we talk about the preparation strategy for mobile developer, here are the things I would talk about. That make sure that you pick a language, and specific to that language, you start working on either Android Studio or Xcode for iOS, and then start understanding that how does the development environment work, how does the UX and UI principles are working. And once that happens, start building your own mobile application, even if it's a very small scale mobile application, because that is going to be really useful for you. Not only it's going to be helping you out with many cool looking things, you can also put that in your resume, and day by day you can add more things in your existing mobile applications. This is going to be a great way to learn in order for mobile development. Now let's talk about the game developer position. Let me quickly take water drinking break. Okay, cool. Now let's talk about the game developer position. Once again, you are mainly going to be responsible for developing the games. That's it, nothing more. Now these are the common roles and responsibilities for a game developer. Now these are the minimum skills you should have as a game developer. So if we talk about, most of the games are built on these four languages, so you should have good strong understanding about any of these languages. Plus you should understand about different game engines and different graphics and animation software. How does the physics and mathematics works, because for all the games we need it to look more and more realistic and follow some common physics principles. Plus now the AI is coming in. Every single time different character or different options needs to make the choices on how the game is going to play out, so you need to create those decision making algorithms and things like that. Plus all the games contain sound, so you need to have basic understanding that how can you create sound effect for your games, how can and also you need to work in collaborative manner, so Git is always going to be there no matter what. Plus you need to have good enough understanding about the core principles of game design and testing and debugging skills, and many different soft skills as well, that how can you work in different teams and stuff like that. Now let's see some of the important things for the mobile developer positions. So the common typical preparation time is around 3 to 6 months, and you can expect starting salary about 50 to $100,000. In terms of challenging, because you are continuously updating the games, you need to make sure that you are constantly be working and fighting with tight deadlines. And this is really a common thing that many people have noticed with the gaming industry, that continuously you are always making sure that you are fighting the deadlines, you are bringing in new updates and things like that. So in my personal opinion, gaming is a good career option if you are really interested in gaming, but it is like one of the most toxic careers in terms of gaming. And by the way, this should say game developer, not mobile developer. So I think this is a mistake. Okay. Now let's talk about the future scope. So of course, more devices are coming in and people are always going to be playing more and more games. So there are of course going to be more and more and better opportunities in the gaming industry. But once again, gaming is something that is like passion based role. So that's why the people who mostly work in the gaming, they really like that, like playing video games, and that's why they become really good at building video games. But in order to do that, like, you always need to be make sure that you are very passionate, because game developers are some of the most hardworking engineers in the entire IT industry. And of course, in terms of future sector, there is augmented reality, virtual reality, mobile gaming, new devices coming in like Wii and Nintendo and PlayStation 5, and new game like GTA 6 is coming in with like $1 billion close to in pre-sales. So gaming industry is a huge industry in itself, and all the different sectors are growing and building their own games. So this is a good career choice and expected to grow in the future. If you don't have the understanding and still want to become a game developer, this is the typical flow of things I would recommend. Now, if you want, you can take the screenshot of this. Basically, these are all the things that we just spoke about the minimum skills that are needed, and this should be the learning sequence that you can go forward with. Okay, now let's talk. And if you want to talk about preparation strategy, the common strategies: start learning about the basic skills such as languages and the Unity or Unreal Engine, and then start building on top of it. So once you learn that, then start understanding that how can you differentiate about different game engines, then start understanding gaming principles and storytelling and this AI designing and player engagement and things like that. Plus start working on your own personal games, personal projects, and start contributing to that. Share that with different people. See how can you make games for VR goggles or augmented realities, and these would be like more advanced and higher topics. So these would be the common prep strategies. Now let's talk about the software architecture position. Now I'm personally a software architect, so if you have any questions, feel free to write it into the comments and I would be able to answer that. But overall, software architecture is a great career option, but this is like a senior level role because a lot of people are dependent on you. So you are going to be responsible to make sure that the current business solution meets the business requirements, plus the efficiency of the integration needs to be there. If you have on-premises services, make sure how it works. If you have cloud services, you need to make sure how it works. What are going to be the hardware constraints, software constraints? How can you make it better? How can you make sure that best practices are being followed? Plus you are providing the leadership on the cloud architecture and strategy. So you need to do that. And this is a very collaborative role because you are continuously working with many different like development teams and IT teams and stakeholders and business people and VPs and C-suites and all the marketing people, operations people. So this is a very collaborative role in nature. So, and plus you need to make sure that the policies that you build and you implement would be responsible for making or breaking your product. So this is a very good role, very good career option, but with lot of visibility and lot of responsibilities. Now let's talk about some of the basic skills that you should have in order to become like a solutions architect or a cloud architect. And this is becoming more and more prevalent that you must have good enough understanding about at least one of the popular cloud platform. So even if you like know AWS or Azure or Google, you need to know at least one. If you know more, that's even better. Plus the popular cloud computing concepts. So things like infrastructure as code, platform as a service, infrastructure as service, platform as service, software as a service, what is serverless compute, what are like AWS Lambda or Azure functions, or how can you lift and shift your applications from on-premises to cloud? What should be your strategy moving forward? Do you want everything in cloud? Do you need to make sure that is there going to be a hybrid architecture? Are you going to be investing in more server resources and things like that? So you need to be considering all of these things. Plus you need to understand that how your applications are going to be speaking with each other and how they are going to remain secure. So After that, you need to decide that what is going to be your DevOps strategy or DevSecOps strategy, how the code is going to be deployed, how you are building the environment, how you are destroying the environment, how you are saving the cost, how the data is being stored, what are the different data saving options. Plus you need to automate the things as quickly as possible. So how can you contribute to that? What are the different architectural practice you are going to follow, like microservices, pub sub method, or event driven development, domain driven development? If your monolith application, how can you break it into the cluster of microservices? So these are all the things that you should understand. And once you do that, you need to also make sure that the application, if something goes wrong, what would be the impact on the system? How can you make it more resilient? How can you make it more available, more scalable? How can you improve the performance, reduce the latency? How can you set up like better firewalls and load balancing and more servers? So this is a really interesting role because you are taking care of so many different things. And I really enjoy working as a solutions architect because every single day I'm either trying to implement something new, learn something new, or see that what is going to be the strategy moving forward. How does the system is going to look like in the next 6 months? How it's going to look like in next like 1 year, next 2 years? Are we, if we are moving forward with Azure, what are the constraints? If we are moving forward with like Kubernetes, why we are doing that? What needs to be done? How it would be done? Who is going to do that? So all of these things are part of day-to-day operations of solutions architect role, and for that you need to have all of these information. Now if we talk about some of the things about solutions architect role, if you want to learn about these things in general dedicatedly, you can learn that in like 5 to 12 months, but you need to have a lot of different practice and experience. So take this with a grain of salt. Starting salary can go pretty significantly high depending on your level of experience and how much you know. So 700,000 American dollars, that's like crazy amount of money, but I've seen people actually get that as a solutions architect. Like they would be in the position of principal architect, but still I have seen people in that compensation range. So you can imagine that if some company decides to pay some individual this much amount of money, how important their jobs must be. Okay. And if we talk about the challenges with this role, so once again, what you are deciding is actually going to make or break the company and product. It's going to decide how much your company is going to spend on the cloud resources, how efficient your code is going to look like, how important your software is going to look like, how fast it's going to behave, how secure it's going to be. And in terms of worst case scenario, like some disaster, how quickly can you bring back up from the system? So this is a very challenging role, and you are every single day you are learning something new and you are implementing something new. So it's a great career option, but also it comes with its own challenges. Now let's talk about the future scope for solutions architect. And from all the things I explained, you must know that this is a great career option because once you are a solutions architect, definitely you are going to be in more senior positions, and there are more and more companies going digital and going technical. So there is always going to be increasing need for this solutions architect role, and this is a really good opportunity. So if you can, I would personally advise anyone to get into this role. Like I become a solutions architect and I'm really happy I did. I'm learning so many new things, and I'm making a lot of good contacts, and every single day I'm basically learning something new and trying to do something better. So it excites me to do my job. Personally, like excellent career option. Now let's talk about what should be the common learning sequence for the solutions architect. And you need to start with the basics. So start with the basic IT concepts and then start learning about different cloud concepts. Move ahead with learning about any popular cloud provider. So AWS, Azure, or GCP, either one of them. Then you can start learning about different security and networking mechanisms. How can you start incorporating DevOps and DevSecOps and automation tools like Terraform and Jenkins and Azure Resource Manager and Bicep and ARM and few other things. And then you can start going deeper into like advanced roles. So things like machine learning, how can you manipulate the vast volumes of data, how can you find meaningful information, plus how can you change the existing architecture for good, for more efficiency, how you are going to be storing the data, what is that policy is going to look like. So all of these things you can start learning one by one. And also for the solutions architect role, it would be great to get any sort of like certification, because these certifications tend to be difficult, and if you have that significantly increases your odds of getting different interviews and making it into the solutions architect position. And preparation strategy, once again, start with the foundations, start with the basics, and then start building on top of the new things. This is going to be the common theme that we just talked about in the previous section. So will just quickly mention that all the things that we talked about, just start working on some personal projects and see that how can you incorporate cloud in the existing framework to make yourself better. And now we are going to go into the realm of data and AI, and starting with the position of data analyst. Now data analyst is really cool and really interesting role, and it's gaining significant popularity in these days. Now let me just take a quick break for drinking water. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to post it into the chat. I'm monitoring the chat, and I would be able to give you an answer. By the way, let me just show you that what are the roles and responsibilities for data analytics role. So I will finish my water. I wanted to do this live stream from some time back, but the thing is, let me see how many slides we went through. We went through 48 slides. We still have 156 slides to go. And that's why I have been like avoiding this, because if I speak for more than like an hour and a half, my voice starts to go away. So that's why. But anyways, okay, let me quickly go ahead and share this thing. Or by the way, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Okay, so a data analyst role, most of the things you are going to be doing is working with the data, and you are going to be collecting, processing, and cleaning the data from primary sources and secondary sources and all sorts of sources you can get the data from. Once you have the data, you need to make sure that you are finding the meaningful insight from the complicated data set that business can actually use in their day-to-day activities. And you are going to be working with many different teams. Plus, with the incoming data, you need to make sure that you are making the best use of data in order to predict that how the future behavior is going to look like, and how can you take the advantage of that data to make better decisions. So let me give you a quick example about that, that why the data analysis is important. The thing is, the company I currently work at, we are the biggest movie theater company across Canada. And I was just speaking like we have a dedicated data engineering team, and we have vast amount of data coming from all the movie theater locations. And then so this is the primary source of data. The secondary source of data is that we have these government websites that they are continuously posting that what are the census data, how many number of international people lives in an area, how many number of immigrants live in an area, and things like that. So combination of these data insights actually helped our data engineers, that they came up with some advanced movie recommendations. And they mentioned that, hey, if we use these movie recommendations and show these movies in these cities, there is a higher likelihood of gaining or selling more seats. And because they did that with the vast amount of data they had, we actually ended up selling more tickets in those places, because we took all of those data in, and we put it into the batteries, like not me personally, but the team in my company. And that's why that tells you that just one single set of computation on their side actually increased the revenue significantly from the company's perspective. So all the role related to data, AI and machine learning, they are really popular and they are always going to be gaining more and more popularity in the career as well. So right now we are going to be talking about data analyst, then data science, data engineer, data scientist, and then AI engineer, AI architect, and machine learning engineer. So this is going to be really important section. So now let's just get started and make sure that you understand what we are talking about. So let me go back to the sharing the PowerPoint presentation, and just a second. Okay. Okay, I think you should be able to see. Cool. Where did the PPT go? Okay. Okay, so here. So now let's talk about the data analyst role. So we just mentioned that how does the data analytics, where did the data analyst go? Okay. Okay, so for data analyst, these are the common roles and responsibilities. Essentially, you are taking in vast amount of data and then you are making sure that with that data, you are doing something meaningful, something better. And there are a lot of different techniques available for that. Now, the skills you should have as a data analyst, you must know different data analytics tool. So that can include things like Excel and SQL, all the way up to like advanced tools like Tableau and Power BI, plus programming languages. And Python is a must for the all the data and AI related roles. So you should do that. By the way, we have a question. So let me read the question. What branch of CS does compiler writing belongs? Since I learned programming, one of my dream is to write a compiler and make a career out of it. So compiler writing would be like hardware development or chip development kind of the role. So that is not what we are going to talk in this section, but you can easily search for that. It's a very complicated role, and also I would personally advise that though it's a great technology, most of that technology has been automated. They are being done with the machines like lithography and SAML and these companies like TMSC, and they are all doing it. So if you want to do it, you can still search about it. But in my opinion, if you are looking for software related jobs, I can help you with that. I have no idea about those hardware related and compiler jobs. Okay. But they are, again, if you like it, go for it. Now going back to our data analytics, that the minimum skills you should need. So some sort of data analytic tool, Python, then data visualization, that how can you put it into the use, and then maths and statistics. This is really important for all the data related rules. And then data wrangling and database management tools. So how can you make use of existing data you have, and how can you manipulate the data for the good of yourself? Plus, once you have that understanding, you also need to know that how can you find the meaningful information from the data you have for the business you support. So I mentioned like our data and AI team, they were able to explain that how can we take the use of the data of movies and also data of sensors, combine them, and then decide that which movie tickets to sell. So this was a great example of data meeting with the business needs and giving the fruitful results. Plus, you must know how to write reports, because you are going to be working with vast amounts of data and everyone wants to know the meaning from the data, and that's where report writing comes into the place. Plus, there is an ethical and also compliance reason on the database side that you must adhere to, that you are not doing something shady with the data. Okay. Now, if we talk about the data analyst role, if we talk about the preparation time, sometimes it's going to be need like somewhere between 3 to 6 months of roles time in order to learn the data analytics skills. Starting salary for data analyst is relatively low, but you can very quickly change this one, because it's very easy to move from data analytics analyst to like data scientist or data engineer role, and they pay much better salaries. And in terms of challenges, once again, because you are working with large amounts of unstructured data, many times it becomes really complicated to understand this. Plus you will have to understand or gain the knowledge about different mathematical and statistical insights as well. So that is also, if you don't like math, then there can be some issues. Okay, so there are some challenges with data analytics role, and you also need to make sure that you are working on tight constraints, tight deadlines. You need to provide detailed analytics, and because your reports are going to be there to make business decisions. So that's why this is a role with good responsibility. In terms of future scope, this has great future scope because there is more and more demand for the data, and there are higher and higher things happening with data. So there is always going to be a higher need with data analytics role, and this is like an excellent career choice. So if you don't have the understanding about this, then you can start, this should be the learning sequence that you can follow. So start with the basic understanding of math and statistics, and then start understanding that what are the data visualization tools, start learning about Python, and then start learning about how can you clean the existing data and transform the data. What are the different query management and data management you are going to use? How can you use the knowledge of statistics and build the models for advanced statistical analysis, plus understand your business, understand the data reporting and presentation skills. So this should be the learning sequence for the data analytics role. Not very difficult to learn, and also really fruitful in terms of career choices. Preparation strategy, once again, start with the mathematics and then build up on the things that we talked about. Okay. Now let's talk about a very similar role, that is data scientist. So for the data scientist role, if we talk about roles and responsibilities, once again, these are going to be very similar responsibilities as data analyst role. The only difference is, in this case, now you are mostly going to be working on building the predictive models and making the machine learning algorithms for your system. So now not only you are working with like processing the large volumes of data, you are also responsible for how that data is going to be processed, cleaned, and used in the future. So that this is really complicated to understand. Okay, in terms of basic skills you should have, once again, same skills as data analyst, but with some higher knowledge and deeper understanding about probabilities and building large language models and how to work with data visualization techniques, and overall more understanding. Plus now you are more ethically responsible to make sure that you are not misusing the data, and you are aware about the different things that you can achieve with the existing amount of data. The complicated and tricky part is to building up the familiarity with different machine learning algorithms and principles. Now let's talk about the data analyst role. So preparation time, once again, by the way, this should be data scientist. So there is some issue with not changing the slides, but anyways, I would fix it in the future. Starting salary around 90,000 to 200,000, which is great salary for starting salary. In terms of challenges remains the same, because continuously we are learning new stuff and dealing with more and more volume of data. So it becomes really tricky to handle it efficiently. And that's where data scientists needs to shine. In terms of future scope, you must know, great future scope. With the rise in AI and machine learning, new things are coming up, and there is huge potential for moving forward in areas like predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics. And your judgments and your analysis would be the path forward for the businesses and companies to make their decisions on the based of. So this is a really good career choice. Okay, if you don't have the understanding or knowledge, this would be the learning sequence I would recommend for the data scientist position. So if you want, you can take the screen capture of this one. And also for the entire PowerPoint that I am presenting right now, I am going to be posting this into like a, I think Google Drive somewhere, and I would post that link in the description. So if you want to have access to this, you can just grab it. Now let's talk about preparation strategy. So once again, start learning with the maths and fundamental, and then start moving up and up with better data skills. And again, next role is data engineer. Once again, this is going to be really similar to the data scientist role. The most of the focus is going to be like on data modeling, mining, and data production and data generation and data cleaning. So this is also very similar to that. You are basically building high performance algorithms and prototypes and predictive models to make sure that companies can do better with the amount of data that they already have. So now let's see that what are the minimum skills you should have as a data engineer. So once again, you must have proficiency over Python, but learning Java and Scala can also be useful. You should have understanding about how different database systems work and how data warehouse solutions are, what is data lake, what is data lake house, and things like that. You should know what ETL process is, how does things like Hadoop, Spark, Kafka, Databricks, Snowflake, how these technologies work, and they are becoming more and more popular day by day. Plus you should understand that how can you store the data, model the data, what are the data warehousing techniques, what are the different cloud offerings available for the data, what are the data pipeline tools, what are the machine learning basis, how can you implement like data ops and machine learning ops into the existing service, what are the compliance requirements, how can you build CI/CD pipeline to automate the data ETL process, and how can you build like a Databricks cluster and then destroy it and things like that. So data engineer is a very dynamic role with a lot of responsibilities, but also a lot of rewards. If we talk about data engineer role, in terms of preparation, you can think about it to prepare for this role in like 4 to 12 months. If we talk about starting salaries, you can go anywhere from 100,000 to 400,000 American dollars. This is a great amount of starting salary, and data engineer is a fabulous role for that. If we talk about challenges, of course, there are challenges associated with that because you are dealing with large volumes of data and a daily changing data cleaning processes and data modeling and things like that. So you want to make sure that you are taking the cost into the account and also the latest and greatest technology into the account. So you are always learning something new. You are responsible for a lot of important things that you are going to be presenting with the data, because based on your data, many important decisions are going to be made. If we talk about future scope, you already know that increasingly excellent future scope for the data engineer role, and there are all of these reasons for that. The biggest reason is the boom in the AI and machine learning right now. Okay, if you don't have the knowledge, learning sequence for the data engineer, this is going to be very similar to the minimum skills you should know, and I'm just going to put it over here. If you want, you can take the screenshot of this one. This is going to be really helpful. Now moving on to the preparation strategy. Once again, start with the basics about learning any particular language, and then gain more and more expertise on different areas and different aspects. Okay, now let's move on to the next item, and that is the BI developer, business intelligence developer. So BI developer role is basically where you are designing dashboards and reports from all the data that you have, and you are cleaning it, and these dashboards are going to be used by executives and people to understand that what the trend has been for your company based on the incoming data, and how can you make future predictions. So this is like a really cool role. You are learning a lot of new things and a lot of new technologies. Now let's talk about the minimum skills you should have, and the most important skill is very good proficiency with tools like Power BI and Tableau, and you should understand that how to connect existing data, how to clean the data, how to warehouse the data in concepts like ETL, extract, transform, and load, and then you put it into the good use, and then building these cool looking dashboards and things like that with tools like Power BI and Tableau. BI developer is newer role, and there is an expectation that in the future it's gonna grow. If we talk about the BI developer role, in terms of preparation, 3 to 6 months is more than enough. Starting salary $80,000 to $140,000 is also more than enough. But in terms of challenges, You need to make sure that the data quality is good. You need to make sure that you are consistent with the data. Balance. You need to make sure that you are keeping pace with the new BI technologies that are coming in. And if you have the complex data, how can you break the data and then generate meaningful business insights from the existing data? Okay, so future scope of BI developer, once again, excellent future scope, because there is continuously growing demand and new things are coming in. If you don't know that if you don't have the knowledge for BI developer and you want to become a BI developer, in my opinion, if you follow this learning sequence, it would be really helpful, and you can complete this within like 2 to 4 months. These are not very difficult to learn technologies and things, and all the resources are available on YouTube. So go ahead, feel free to take the screen capture, but this is my suggestion. Now, if we have to talk about preparation strategy for the BI developer role, once again, start with the basics and then start understanding that how does the SQL work, how does the different database management system work, understand Power BI, Tableau, and other like business insight tools where you can build all of these cool looking dashboards and things like that. And yeah, this should be my opinion. Okay, now let's talk about the machine learning engineer. Once again, very popular role, really important role. If we talk about roles and responsibilities for this role, you are essentially responsible for building the machine learning algorithms, deep learning algorithms system. This is a new technology that is gaining excellent amount of boom in the market. So you must be learning a lot of new and cool looking things. There is great potential to grow and build new stuff and gain more insights. So this is a really awesome role, and we all know OpenAI, Google Bard, Google Gemini, and all of these things, they are here because of the machine learning techniques and machine learning algorithms. So machine learning engineers are a great career choice. In terms of skills you should know in order to become a machine learning engineer, now this is a combination of a lot of like data scientist and data engineer role. On top of it, the really important insight on proficiency with Python, understanding what the machine learning algorithms are, how to validate the existing data, and the knowledge of neural networks and deep learning frameworks. So things like TensorFlow and PyTorch. So this is an advanced level role with a lot of important understanding. So if you can think of starting your career with like data analyst and then eventually you can become a machine learning engineer. You can also directly become machine learning engineer, but for that you need to do a lot of like pre-study as well, but it's definitely worth it. So if we talk about machine learning engineer preparation time, depending on the type of experience you have, you can expect to learn the skills within like 4 to 12 months. Starting salary can be up to like 200,000 American dollars, which is great sums of salary for starting salary. And in terms of challenges, because you are learning something new, you are building something new, you are building an entirely new set of networks on which potentially tomorrow, I don't know, maybe like self-driving cars would be there, home cleaning robots would be built on top of that. So these are the things that are going to be result of machine learning engineer. So there are ethical questions that you should be understanding of. There are infrastructure constraints. There are different technologies that you should know, how to understand structured and unstructured data, how can you find meaningful information from that. So all of these things a good machine learning engineer should understand, and that's why it's a great career opportunity. Talking about future scope, once again, a lot of different options to go ahead and move forward in many different options. Okay, now let's talk about the important things. If you don't have the skills for the machine learning engineer, how can you get best use out of it? So for that, you can just start thinking about learning things in this sequence. So feel free to take the screen capture of this. This is really important and also really good to learn. Okay, preparation strategy, once again, start from the scratch and then try to build solid foundation and understand more and more things. So I'm rushing over things because I know I've been talking about quite some time and I still have a long way to go. Let's talk about how many more slides. So we are at slide 78. We still have 156 slides to go. So I think we are halfway there. So let me quickly finish this because tomorrow I have to go for work. And okay, now let's talk about AI engineer. Once again, very similar role to machine learning engineer, but now you are mostly focusing on the AI portion of it. And once again, you are doing very common things as machine learning engineer. So these are like interchangeable roles, and depending on the company, there is like on machine learning, the more aspect is on learning and building the machine learning models. On the AI engineer, you are seeing that how you can use AI to build algorithms and solve complex items and make better use of what you already have. So let's talk about the minimum skills you should have as an AI engineer. Once again, very similar to what we saw for the machine learning engineer, but now there is more focus towards neural network, machine learning, and AI ethics and privacy, and also mathematics, plus cloud computing and natural language processing. So these are the important things that an AI engineer should know. Speaking about AI engineers, preparation time once again 4 to 12 months. Starting salary once again very similar to machine learning engineer, 100 to 200,000 American dollars, which is pretty good and pretty significant. Challenges once again very similar to what we just spoke about for the machine learning engineer. If we have to talk about the future scope, so of course everyone can predict AI engineer is a career that is continuously going to grow. So this is a good career opportunity. Learning sequence, again very similar to the machine learning sequence. Once again, you are mostly focusing on the same things. First, you are understanding Python, you are learning algebra, calculus, probability, and statistics, so math and statistics. Then you are taking care of supervised and unsupervised learning, decision trees, and then deep learning and neural network techniques. So these are the things that you should progress on in terms of learning. One becomes more complicated than the other, but if you start from the basics, it should be easy to understand. And preparation strategy, once again, start with the small things and then build on top of it. Okay, and let's move to the next portion, that is AI architect, artificial intelligence architect. So this is an advanced level role. This is a step further to the AI engineer role, and basically in this case you are responsible where you are designing that what the AI solutions is going to be for your company and what are going to be the infrastructure to support those AI solutions. So this is a combination of architectural role and also AI strategy moving forward for your company, how you are going to do that. In terms of minimum skills, you must know everything that we talked about for AI engineer. On top of it, now there is a higher constraint on things like how you are going to integrate your existing system with AI, what are going to be the AI ethics and compliance you are going to follow, what is going to be the project management, because you must be leading a team of few other people. Okay, now let's talk about the preparation time. So once again, because this is a senior level role, it can take like from few months to few years to be prepared for this role. Starting salary can be pretty significant. Once again, 120 to 300,000 American dollars, which is like great amount of money. Challenges, because AI in itself is a new technology, so there are going to be a lot of changes and challenges, and you need to stay up to date with that. So this is it. Future scope, once again you can predict excellent future scope, no issues with that. Learning sequence, once again very similar. Here is the screenshot. If you want, you can use this one. And let's move on to the next one. Preparation strategy, start from the small and go to the big. Okay, so now we talk about all the things related to data and AI. Now we are going to be talking about cloud engineer, that how to become a better cloud engineer. So first let's understand that what are going to be the typical roles and responsibilities. You are going to be responsible for managing cloud solutions and cloud infrastructure. That include things like what are the things that you already have in cloud. You want to make sure that you are gaining like you are using all the security and best practices, plus how can you make sure that you are being cost effective, you are trying to automate things as quickly as possible, everything is scalable, and you are taking care of like disaster recovery principles and high scalability and high availability. These are the skills you should have at a minimum, and I'm not going to explain, just take the screenshot because I'm getting really tired, and we are just going to quickly run over these things. So for the cloud engineer, in terms of preparation time, around 3 to 6 months. Starting salary 80,000 to 180,000 American dollars, which is pretty good, pretty great, pretty significant. In terms of challenges, because every day something new is coming up on cloud. Plus you need to make sure that everything is secure, scalable, available. You are taking care of the performance and also trying to manage the cost. You don't want to have like $1,000,000 solution for $10,000 problem. So you are understanding what needs to be done for the current scenario and how can you make it better and more optimized. Future scope as a cloud engineer, because cloud demand is increasing, the cloud engineers are going to be more and more needed and desired for by different companies. So this is a good career option. Learning sequence, if you don't know, start with these sequence. And important thing for the cloud engineer would be like, of course, basic concepts and understanding how the cloud computing works, but you must have understanding of at least one cloud provider and good understanding about compliance and network architecture, and also things like Terraform and CloudFormation and Ansible. So infrastructure as code really is really important. Plus good understanding of DevOps practices and storing and all of these things. So make sure to follow this sequence and you would be the best cloud engineer in the world. And preparation engineers start with the small and then start to get familiarized. If you want, you can also get some sort of certification. And very similar role we have is cloud infrastructure engineer. Once again, it's very similar to what we just saw before. So in terms of roles and responsibilities, very similar things. You are just there to make sure that the cloud infrastructure is available, scalable, and also not very costly. This is the shortest and sweetest thing if you want to understand. Minimum skills you should have. You should know different cloud environments and you should know how to make it better with tools like Terraform or CloudFormation for infrastructure as code and DevOps services, and monitoring and alerting and troubleshooting, and also try to follow the best practices for cloud computing. Okay. In terms of preparation time, 3 to 6 months is more than enough. Starting salary is $80,000 to $140,000. That is also really good for cloud infrastructure engineer. And this is a growing field, so there are a lot of good opportunities. Okay, now let me just do one thing really. Okay, this is the learning sequence. If you want to follow, just take the screen capture, because I really have to go to sleep now. And this is the preparation strategy for cloud infrastructure engineer, and these are the preparation strategy. Now let me quickly do one thing. We are almost there, so let me just go over all the important things for all the 25 careers that we talked about. So next career we are going to talk about is cloud administrator. So this is very similar to cloud infrastructure engineer, but now you are administrating the resources, so administrating the people, administrating the different services, and giving access to different people. In terms of skills you should have, these are the skills you should have. And please move forward and take the screenshot because it's very self-explanatory. In terms of preparation time, 3 to 6 months is more than enough. Starting salary at $60,000 to $140,000, not bad. And challenge is always you need to learn something new, so that is the biggest challenge. Okay, future scope, demand is supposed to increase. If you don't know how to become a cloud administrator, here is the learning sequence I recommend. So take the screen capture and this is going to be helpful. Now let's move on to the preparation strategy. Once again, you can read this one. Okay, so now let's talk about the DevOps engineer role. So basically, as a DevOps engineer, you are building pipelines to automate things as quickly and as efficiently as possible, so that you don't spend time and money and resources in manually doing stuff, because that is risky, that is inefficient, and also it can be very expensive. Plus it does not work well with like disaster recovery scenarios. These are the minimum skills you should have for as a DevOps engineer. So things like different DevOps tools, different cloud technologies, and also combination of lot of different like containers, Kubernetes, Jenkins, and monitoring tools, and understanding of networking protocols and security best practices. So if we talk about DevOps engineers, this is a really good position to do. Within like 3 to 6 months, you can learn this one. Starting salary is really good and really lucrative, $80,000 to $150,000 American dollars. That is not bad, but challenges are you need to continuously maintain, and many times you need to work on the tight deadlines. Okay, Now let's talk about the future scope. Future scope is really good. Learning sequence, if you want, this is the learning sequence I would recommend. So you can take the screenshot and you can help yourself out basically. Preparation strategy, once again, start with the small, try building your own pipelines, and then you can basically gain more insights. Now let's talk about the QA engineers. So as a QA engineer, you need to make sure that you are the checks and balances for all the software developers out there. So you must be very feasible to understand that how to make sure. Okay, someone posted a message, let me read that. In the current market, which roles are more in the market? I'm in the master CS. Yeah, so in the current market, the important roles are like all the software development roles, plus all the data and AI related roles, plus all the roles related to cloud. They are really popular. These three I would say are the most important roles. So software development roles, data and AI, and cloud computing roles. This is what you should be looking forward to, because they are really hot topics right now, and they might be really helpful. QA engineers, okay, good and bad. Sometimes like mobile developer is also good. Game developer I wouldn't recommend, because it's like really intensive role, because the game development does not have good repo in the IT industry. Okay, now for the QA engineer, basically you are responsible for building test plan to check what the developers have done, and for that there are many different options and many different ways you can do that. If we talk about the different skills in order to become a good QA engineer, okay, let me just zoom this one a bit. These are the skills you should have as a QA engineer. And if we see other aspects, so preparation time, yeah, 3 to 6 months is more than enough. Somewhere between $80,000 to $150,000 starting salary is also more than enough, because every company needs a QA engineer, because you have developers developing stuff and breaking stuff all the time. Okay, and future scope is good, not like great, but good, because more and more QA work is becoming more and more automated. So eventually they would be replaced, not completely, but their number of them would slowly be shrinking in an ideal scenario. I have seen some companies or some teams who actually had no QAs in their team, and they only rely on automated testing to make sure everything works as expected. So yeah, I mean, it was risky as well, but there is a trend, and you never know what's going to happen in the future. If you don't know how to become a QA engineer, and if you want to learn it, this is one of the sequence I would recommend on the things that you can think of learning. Okay, and let's talk about UX and UI designer. So this is a very similar role to front-end engineer. You are basically making things more beautiful and making things more pleasing and aesthetic for the users of that website or mobile application. And some of the common tools or minimum skills you should have. So important thing is like Adobe XD and Figma, and tools like Sketch. They are becoming more and more popular, and plus all the understanding about graphic designing and collaborative communication, plus responsive and interactive design. So you can take the screenshot of this one. Now let's talk about the few important things about UX UI designer role. This is one of the roles I've seen taking like good popularity these days, especially with like Google certifications. So if you want, you can think of doing it. This is like relatively easy to learn, and also has good enough like starting salary. So there are good chances as a UX UI developer. In terms of learning sequence, this is the learning sequence I would recommend, where you start with basic principles, but important thing is to learn things like Adobe XD and Figma, because they are becoming more and more popular these days. And then you can start thinking about building your own portfolio with the existing services and devices that we currently have. Now let's talk about the conventional role of system administrator and network administrator. These roles are not really popular in my opinion, because they are becoming slower and slower, because most of the companies are migrating towards cloud. So the need for system and network admin are slowly fading away. But if you still want to be there, you can think of these career options. Like these are the technologies or skills you should have. But the thing is, where network and system engineers are mostly needed in data centers for those cloud companies. So there are still going to be roles for them. They are never going to be completely replaced. But yes, their demand has reduced compared to previous levels because of the new roles that are coming in. Once again, this is a skill that you can learn. Decently good enough starting salary that comes with its own challenges. Future scope is okay, but eventually it will fade out. If you have to learn everything from new, this is the sequence I would recommend. So go ahead, move forward with taking the screenshot of this one. I would really emphasize on the things of taking the certification for this one to understand the advanced networking concept, because they are pretty much needed in a lot of different jobs. And preparation strategy, once again, build a solid foundation and then start to improve on yourself. One more role is database administrator. So this is a conventional role, but also this is an important role. So it still remains in a lot of different companies because all the companies have their own different databases and they need a database administrator. I'm sorry about that. So these are the minimum skills you should have as a database admin. Include things like different database management systems and how can you make sure to take good backup and recovery and things like that. In terms of role, yeah, you can prepare for this in like 3 to 12 months. Starting salary is also good enough. This has been a conventional role, so decently good enough future scope. If you don't have the knowledge, here are the learning sequences that you can follow. Okay, and now there are like just few more roles to go, so I'm just going to quickly rush over them. Scrum Master, this is the funniest role because you are essentially doing a lot of cool and fun activities. So this is a good career option, not core IT role, but you are helping people manage projects and bring them to the completion. So a lot of interesting things. Even in Scrum Master role, the certification is really important, and these are the minimum skills you should have. In terms of starting salary, yeah, $60,000 to $120,000 is expected, and preparation time is also 2 to 6 months. If we have to talk about the future scope seems to be growing because more and more companies are becoming fully agile, and for that they need some sort of like Scrum Master to manage all of these things. This is the learning sequence that I would recommend. So for anyone who is looking forward, if you don't have that knowledge, at least start understanding the agile principles and Scrum principles, and then you can start building up your expertise on top of that. So yeah, next role is IT manager. So IT manager is nothing but just like a manager of different people. Every single company has a manager, so manager has their own responsibilities, but now IT manager has to take care of people and also different like IT stuff and vendor management and product management and resource management and things like that. So there are these are like advanced roles, but they can be a step to move up the corporate ladder. And also for those who just don't want to do core IT work and also go ahead in the management realm, this is a good role to move forward. These are advanced roles, so you can't learn them overnight, but starting salaries can be staggering, and depending on your skills, you can actually make a wonderful career out of it. So learning sequence, here is the learning sequence, but also this role is not for freshers, so take this with a grain of salt. Okay. And then next role is business system analyst. So the role of business system analyst is to collect all the requirements. He or she is the bridge between the requirements and the tech team, and they are meeting with the stakeholders, collecting all the requirements, and then giving those requirements to the developers to make sure that they are following through, and then working that as a bridge. So it requires a lot of soft skills and a lot of analytical skills, but it's a really interesting role and really easy to learn. Very good starting salary and very good challenges and also future scope. So this is a good role. If you don't have the knowledge, this is the learning sequence that I would recommend. And this ends my presentation. So thank you so much for listening so far. Let me just remarks. So I know in the last 50 slides, I just ran them through like a fast paced movie, but basically I really need to go to sleep, and I've been speaking for 2 hours continuously, and I'm not yet used to doing longer live streams. But I think my experience is that eventually I would get there, because now I would try to do more and more frequent what do we say, frequent live streams. And also uh, you can take all the screenshots, and also I would try to put the ppt or the pdf that I showed in the chat into the Google Drive, and share that link with everyone so you can have that access. Okay, hope you enjoyed and like this session, and let me know in the comments if there is anything else I could have done to make it better. And till then, take care.